Off the Ball.
In partnership with Rockshore, bring you League of Ireland football, a league of our own. Get the facts. Be drink aware. Visit drinkaware.ie.
You're welcome along to the League of Ireland podcast. It's Nathan with you this week. League of Ireland football and Off the Ball is brought to you by Rockshore. Hashtag a league of our own. Drink responsibly. See drinkaware.ie. We are live tomorrow night from Richmond Park. St. Patrick's Athletic against Galway United. The only way of hearing it is by downloading the Off the Ball app. Jonathan Higgins and Barry Murphy are going to be with you from 7:30 for Pats against Galway United, Stephen Kenny against John Caulfield, and all that good stuff. And we'll have updates from all the other games as well. Vinnie, Perth, good evening.
Good evening.
Gareth, McGlynn, thanks for joining us.
Nathan, what's a crack? I was on Vinnie time there, sorry.
Wow, we've had a complete reversal in the usual pod here, in that generally Vinny's the one who rocks up whenever he feels like it, and then when he does, we can't hear him. Now, where's the regular Gareth McGlynn setup?
I'm in the office today. I usually do it from the house, but we're in the. You're catching me at office time, so
wow, okay.
Got to do it from here.
We'll try and go back to normality next week. So we got another big week ahead in what is quickly becoming the maddest league in the world. We've got a clash of top against bottom this week, because it's going to be Sligo Rovers bottom of the table against Drogheda United. We've got Shamrock Rovers heading down to Cork City. Bowls, unstoppable Bowls at home against Waterford, where last time they met we thought, well, maybe, going into that one, Alan Reynolds was desperate for a win. Got it. And this time around, well, Waterford desperate for points, and Bohemians cruising in title contention. We got Derry City against Shelbourne, and as I say, our live commentary is Pats against Galway United. I'm looking at the form table here. So Bowls are the form side. Looking at the last 5 games, Gareth. Looking at the last 5 games. So Bowls have won 3 in a row. They've won 4 of their last 5. They're top of the form table. Who do you think's in second place in the form table?
Honestly, Nathan, it is. You couldn't even hazard a guess. I'm going to guess someone like Drogheda could be still there, or even Rovers, something like that.
Well, neither Drogheda or Rovers have won any of their last 3 games, so it's neither of them. Vinny, who's second in the form table?
It has to be Galway, doesn't it?
Derry, no?
It's Derry City.
Derry, yeah.
Derry have won 3 of their last 5. So Rovers haven't won any of their last 3. Drogheda haven't won any of their last 3. Shells have won 1 of their last 5. Galway United have 2 defeats in their last 5, but they do have 7 points in their last 5, and Pats have 1 win in their last 5. And all of that means, if you're not aware, which I'm sure you are, that there are 2 points separating the top 6 and 3 points separating the top 7. We've Drogheda and Galway on 20 points, Pats, Rovers and Shells all on 19, Bows on 18, and Derry on 17. We were saying at the start of the season, Vinny, that 63 points won't win you the league again. If you get to 63 points, you'll probably have it won with 3 weeks to spare at this stage.
Yeah, it's interesting one. I heard Stephen Bradley say that no one has walked away with the league in the last sort of 10, 15 years.
Here we go.
Except for Cork. Except for Cork, which I found a little bit funny. But look, feels like somebody has to go on a run, but I'm not seeing the form from anybody. If you look at the 3 title contenders, are probably still, in most people's eyes, Shells, Pats and Rovers. And the 3 of them's form doesn't look, not just their form, because you can win and lose any match, but they don't look like they're playing exceptionally well. One thing I would say is you're starting to see Rovers getting a lot of the better players on the bench, and in moments they've been brilliant, but at other moments it looks a bit of a struggle for them. So I just like, if you're gonna, I think winning the league title close to averaging 2 points will get you thereabouts, but this year it feels like it's going to be in the early 60s again, which is, I don't know whether that's a good or bad thing. I honestly don't know.
We are a third of the way through the season. I was going to say let's pick our team of the season so far, but we'd be here half the night. So let's leave that until we're halfway through the season. So what I'm asking from both of you to start the podcast is your top 3 players of the season so far. Gareth McGlynn, you're up.
Well, I think it's like the league table. I think it's just a mesh of players. I kind of went, when I was doing this, Nathan, I kind of went through every club, and believe it or not, was able to pick up 2 players from Sligo, Elding and Fitzgerald. Really impressed me. Going forward, Sligo have been immense. They've been scoring goals. They've been free flowing at the back. It's been crazy. You look at Cork, then you've got Cahill O'Sullivan's performing very well. Looks like he's going to earn himself a move away in the summer. I think Cork will do very, very well to hold on to him. Maybe a case of getting him and loan back for the rest of the season. Almon's plugging away with Waterford. Duffy's got good stats. Come off it the last 2 or 3 weeks. Bowes by Grehan's going well at the back. McElroy's been the guy for Shells for me that's really stood out, and I know they've rewarded him with a deal now. But in the middle of the park, he has been really solid. I mean, Mark Coy last year had that position nailed down. He was just the foundation of what they built on. But it seems like McElroy, obviously Mark's been moved into defence, moved into right back, centre half, right of a 3. But McElroy's really impressed me. Shamrock Rovers, slow enough start. Jack Byrne has got 5 assists, and he's only really getting fit in the last 2 or 3 games. That's quite impressive. I mean, we know how much of a good player he is. Now, if he stays fit and stays at the levels that he's at over the last 2 games, he could really have a big say in this title race. Honohan, massive fan, as we know. The reliability of this guy, the durability of this guy, scoring goals now as well, he's got to get a shout. Keena was flying for Pats, 5 goals, got injured. Reports are that he's going to be on the bench this week. To me, Moses Dyer has to be in the conversation. They've been looking for a striker. There's talk of Hooven going back there. There's talk of Gaffney going back there at one stage. They've just lacked that striker. I really like Broder. I don't think he gets enough plaudits at the back. Unbelievable when I saw him live. Really, really good. Does the basics really well. Doesn't try and go on mad runs through the middle of the park. Does the really easy stuff really well, and does the difficult stuff without it with a plum. Hickey's been good, and Markey and Davis for Drogheda. So if you're going to put me down to it, would be...
I am putting you down to it. That's why. That's what I thought I was doing when I asked you to give me your top 3.
Davis, Dyer, and Honohan.
Honohan, wow. Right. I didn't have Honohan in my top 3. Vinny?
Keep it simple. I think
Please.
Moses Dyer is a straightforward one. I think Hickey... I think for Drogheda, I think Darren Markey is an obvious one. I think then there's a fight for a couple of positions. I think special mention to people like Jane Farrell. I think he's done exceptional at Drogheda. He almost doesn't look what he should do. I think Gareth McElroy looks a hell of a good player. Michael Duffy's had flashes. Forrester's had flashes. Jack Bourne looks like he's coming back. But I would say probably the third one I'd put in. I think Healy has added a new dimension to Shamrock Rovers, and as ultimately as we don't think they're doing as well as we think they are, they're a point off the top of the table with all the injuries had. So I think Healy for Rovers has been exceptional. Moses Dyer and I suppose just form in which Drogheda started, and therefore you couldn't leave them out. But they'd be the 3 for me.
All right. Yeah, I had Markey on my list as well. It's impossible to leave Moses Dyer out. Though I do look at Asua at Galway and wonder, again, like Kazim last year, is he going to be a player other teams are looking at? You know, even Shamrock Rovers might be looking on that right-hand side as a right wing-back, and he can play Honohan on the left. Is he at that level? Is he at a level where he could go and play European football next season? It certainly feels like it at the moment, and he's been brilliant every time I've seen Galway so far this season. I was tempted to put Jack Byrne in because I think Byrne has proved over the last 4 games that he's still the best player in the league. Like, it's remarkable that he didn't start a single game in the group stage of the Conference League, and I know he was struggling with injury, and it did feel like maybe Rovers were going a slightly different direction. But his performance against Cork, which I sort of discounted because Cork were so poor, but was as good an individual performance as I've seen over the last couple of seasons. And then he backed it up against Pats. He had his moments against Shells. He was still, I know he got man of the match, and there was probably a few different contenders, and it was a tasty second half where we were looking for Vinnie when we were chatting at halftime of someone to go around and kick someone, and then thankfully they all just kicked each other in the second half. But the technical level of that was still brilliant, and Byrne was at the centre of all that, but he still only played 4 games. Look, he didn't play 5 in a row any stage last season. at any stage last season, he didn't manage to start 5 games in a row. You'd feel he probably will start in Cork tomorrow night. And how he's gone from a few minutes here and there to playing, like they're playing Friday, Monday, and playing all of them. Yeah. I think it's hard to look past him, but I think the fact
he did look a little tired, Nathan. Did he? Not?
He did. How could he not by Friday night when they had played? Basically, it was his fourth start in 10 days. I got to go with McElroy because I think to go into a title-winning team and to run the show generally, and I haven't heard about the injury as to what the prognosis is. Bizarrely, in saying and putting him in the top 3 players, Shell's got a whole lot better when he went off the pitch. And the other one who hasn't been mentioned, and he's probably not going to be mentioned, he won't end up in people's teams of the season. Evan Caffrey's been brilliant for Shell so far.
Yeah, he stepped up.
Considering he wasn't in the team, I think, when Damien Duff was picking it the day before the start of the season, gets in late when Ali Coote gets injured, and every time you watch him, he just does his thing, understated, and definitely a contender. I presume he's still in the mix for a young player of the year.
You know what is about him as well, Nathan? That at the start of the season, when we're talking about the Shell squad and what it means to win a league title the second year round, certain people go up a level and feel like they're a champion, and he does. He walks the talk and he backed it up on the pitch. And he's been played in probably a couple of different positions he's been around the pitch at different stages, but he's been excellent for them as well. That's a decent shout, to be fair.
Paddy Barrett's injury, is that Rodri-esque in its impact on Shells? I was listening to Late Night and I was trying to show in because they were kind of asking about Mark Coyle and different systems. You're like the entire system change, I assume, is also because Paddy Barrett's not there. Is that how you see it, Gareth?
100%. I mean, how many times did I come on this podcast last year saying he should have been Player of the Year? He is that important to the Shells team. And not only that, when you bring him out, they've had like 3 or 4 variations of trying to get it right. It looks like Gannon is on and he's on the bench. It looks like he's trying to play through an injury just because Paddy's out. But Paddy, it just brings so much. He brings communication, he brings leadership, he just organises the whole lot. And I guarantee you, the midfield are missing him as well when you're talking about communicating the midfield, drop, go forward, push up 5 yards. So, I mean, if you bring your best player out of any team, it's going to be a problem. But if you are like Shells are, and let's be honest, they build from the back. Their defensive record last year was exceptional, and that's why, to me, Rovers were so good for the 4 years in a go. Yes, the forward players were brilliant, but defensively they were solid. And Shelburne last year were exactly that, and he was the biggest part of that. So you bring that out, and I think they've actually done well. That result down in Sligo where it was a makeshift. There was 3 midfielders in the back 4. It was unbelievable. It was really good, but missing him, it's crazy how many good results and how little they're conceding with him being out of it.
A third of the way into the season, so they're 5th, 4 wins, 7 draws, 1 defeat. 16 scored, 12 conceded in the 12 matches so far, and they're point off the top of the table with quite a few injuries and certainly not an overly settled side for Shells at the moment. Where are you on Shells' level, Vinnie? Because in the second half in particular, and even maybe in the entire game last Friday night, it felt as though they were, for periods, the better team, though Rovers certainly created the better chances. But I was thinking about it afterwards. I'm like, it felt like they were the better team, but I'm not sure in what way they were the better team, if that makes sense.
It does, and let me try and explain it from my view and why I see it. It depends on your eye, okay? So you can go and watch Rovers and be really impressed by them. You can see that they dominate the ball, and you hear the manager speaking about we deserve to win this game. He's had to do that a lot over the last little while, and we create this chance, that chance. But in even the Shells Rovers game is a great example of it. Rovers probably dominated the ball. Tactically, they were ahead of Shells at different stages. The players, Blackburn, as you said, was coming in out of the game comfortable. Healy's giving them a great passing range from midfield. But what Shells did for me was every time they did go on the attack, it looked more of a goal threat. Now that's why I prefer. I don't know what the right word is, but I would prefer to watch the Shells than to watch the Rovers at the moment, because it feels like there's going to be goal-mouth action with this way Rovers played. And Odebeko up front is the one who's leading the line for him. He's trying to get in behind people. He's constantly running down the side. And he had a difficult the other night, but he still, had a couple of big moments in the game. Ellis Chapman it wasn't brilliant the other night. And again, that's probably down to that Friday, Monday thing where he hasn't been playing at the start of the season, so thrown in. So to sum it up, I think you feel like there's more of a threat with the Shelbourne team over the Rovers team after watching the two of them go head to head, and that's sort of where that confusion a little bit comes from. But they're thereabouts, and I think if they get a few bodies back fit, I mean, they sort of, it feels like for me, they need to get Gannon fit, and whether he's pulling an injury or not, they need to get Barrett fit, and a couple of other Sam Bone has been in and out with injuries. I think Ledwich has done really well for them. Lunny's been exceptional as well, beside McEnroy. So I think if you get everybody fit, I think they'll be thereabouts when it comes to giving out the league title at the end of the season. But he's had to change his way of playing a little bit, and he's involving, and he's trying to be a bit more attack-minded.
Do you need as a manager, Vinnie? Because, look, they've had 3 2-all draws in a way, and they've got so many issues at the back. Does Duff, and are you seeing signs that Duff is going, all right, we are going to concede goals, we just don't have the players there? Are you seeing signs that he's looking to find a way that they're going to have, they're having to score 2 goals in every game just to get a draw at the moment?
Yeah, I think what we've seen, for example, Ali Coote's a great example of it. I thought Ali Coote came on, and obviously first touch is brilliant, as we know, but there was more than that. He gave them just a new lease of life when he came on. Don Martin was very similar as well. So he's making a lot more attack-minded subs, but he's had to do that because, as you said, he's either chasing the game or he needs to go and get a winner. And again, using an old saying of mine, it's easy to be a defensive coach. I'm not saying Duffer was last year, but the hardest part of football is going and win games. And that's being tested now with the Shell squad. And that's where we'll see another side of him. Can he turn 0-all draws or 1-1-all draws into wins, as opposed to taking the lead, what he did so many times? And I wouldn't say he hung on in games, but he had to do that at different stages. So what you have on your bench and the flair off your bench, and sort of you and your coaches seeing what the right decision is in that moment. As I said, Coote was a great example of the other day. He came on, and I thought he swung the game back towards them for a period of time. So they're the big moments. They're what they're all about.
Vinnie, on that as well, see if you're a defender, right, and Shamrock Rovers a lot of the ball, and you're constantly under pressure. Once he brings on someone like Ali Coote, it replaces somebody in midfield that actually can dictate the tempo of the game and give you a breather for 5-10 minutes. But just by keeping the ball, just by spreading it from right to left for a wee minute, gets you up the pitch, gets you nice and consolidated, and gives you a breather. So, I mean, I think if he starts playing the more creative players, because if you look at the team, Wood, Chapman, and Adebeko, those 3 were kind of playing more forward with Caffrey supporting them. If you have Coote in there who controls the game a wee bit more, gives the defenders a breather.
Yeah, but also remember, particularly because Rovers play with a back 3 and 2 wing backs, he brought Coote onto the left wing, and all of a sudden Rovers it wasn't just Dan Cleary had gone off with an injury as well. So was he? No, he wasn't off at that stage, but he went off a couple of minutes later. So Dan Cleary, a right centre half, has got a decision to make. Do I go and mark Ali Coote, or do I pull a Matthews or whoever it is back? And that's the tactic. That's the game, the tactical side of the game, playing out in front of the rise. And Coote had chalk in his boots for the first 5-10 minutes of the game. Cut in some wonderful crosses, brilliant ball, a couple of times, and that's the game. That's why you put managers on the sideline. You don't, put them up into the stands and say, watch the game. It's about making big decisions, and they made them.
Stephen Bradley, if he was listening to this, or the Rovers coaching staff, probably be shouting at the radio right now going, geez, a month ago, lads, you were saying we were a bit boring to watch. We scored 10 goals in our last 4 matches. You're saying Shell's with a better team. Michael Noonan misses a one-on-one. Danny Grant misses a glorious chance. We're creating loads of opportunities. Jack Burns, man of the match every single week. What's the problem?
Well,
there's no problem. They're point off the top.
Yeah. And not only Rovers. I mean, last week, about 2 weeks ago, and I was the biggest one for it. I was shouting for the attacking player to get involved in the league. There wasn't enough attacking goals, talent, and we've seen a massive shift. I don't know it was the 2 games a week, but there's been a lot more goals. There's been a lot more chances created. It's got a lot better.
And there's an argument that maybe the best performance of the season so far was Rovers at Pats.
But it was the best performance of the last
they didn't win
2
the game.
years. But it was the best performance of the last 2 years.
They didn't win the game. And listen, I don't want to... I'm wary of how I frame this around Jack Byrne then. So Jack Byrne, I assume, is a reason that they're able to play attacking football to a level that we haven't seen over the last couple of years because he's fit and he's starting.
No, it's not just not our criticism of Jack. Sorry, Nathan. It's not just that. If you go to that fourth 45 minutes against Pats where he should have been 3-4 up, it was Gaffney playing on his left-hand channel between your sort of right centre half, right fullback. It was Graham Burke electric. You look at the goal they got. Graham Burke breaking from his own half. He done that to Lennon a couple of times. So what that was for a difference is you had, if you think you're playing in Pat's defensive shape there, you've got Gaffney, and that's why I was shocked Gaffney didn't start against Chelsea, but he's come back from injury, to be fair to Amanda. He's running at you. He's forcing it into corners. He's winning the seconds. He's picking up stuff, and he's showing a little bit of quality. You've got him and Burke on the other side, predominantly on the right-hand side, running past Lennon if he isn't there. Then all of a sudden that means Pat is a back four. Again, it sounds like I'm explaining stuff really simple here, but it is as simple as if you're Joe Redmond, Gaffney goes 3 or 4 times because Rovers aren't afraid to knock the ball 40, 50 yards either. And once Gaffney gets in once, then Joe Redmond drops off 3 or 4 yards. Just all it is. And then Burke runs past Lennon. So Sean Hoare drops off 3 or 4 yards to give himself a little bit of cover. What happens then? Now, Jack, go and play. Healy, go and find our best players. And that's where the dominance of all of those players playing well at the time. The biggest challenge, and genuinely, I give out this impression I don't like Rovers. I don't know why I do it, maybe for a bit of banter. I would love to see this team turn it back on. And if all of the very best players play, they should romp the league. The challenge we're having is we're not seeing them all at their very best at the same time, bar 45, 50 minutes against Pats. And Pats turned it around a little bit. Some of that was tactical by Stephen, and some of it is some of Rovers' best players are still finding their feet from a fitness point of view. So that's just an honest assessment of Rovers from me. But I understand Bradley and the lads are probably still shouting at the radio.
Well, I'm sure as well they're going, Jesus, if we've had our best performance in a couple of years and we didn't win that game, and we're 2-0 up against Bulls and we don't win that game, and we create the amount of chances they did against Shells and we don't win that game, eventually this comes back to bite you in the ass. And Jack Byrne sort of hinted at that in his post-match interview. I was listening to late night and driving home from the game, and Johnny Ward was talking about it like, whoa, did you see Jack's interview? And I wasn't sure whether he was just wrecked and wasn't in the mood, or whether there was, again, with his experience of winning all of those titles, he's like, geez, lads, we're not going to get away with playing this well and not winning games for very long. And as to why they're giving away so many games, so many goals, Gareth, what are you seeing defensively? Because it's Lee Grace, it's Pico Lopez, it's Dan Cleary, who are still starting every game. I know some Rovers fans would feel Corey O'Sullivan should be in the lineup and maybe was moved out too quickly when Lee Grace returned. What are you seeing from them defensively that they are so open?
Well, first of all, the Jack interview, I listened to it as well. It was absolutely brilliant. And it gave you an insight into his mindset. So his mindset is now, hold on a minute, I have now been injured for so long. I've busted my arse to get back to real good fitness. I'm flying. I felt good in the game. We played brilliant in the game. We didn't win the game. But unfortunately, this league is unforgiving, and Jack's going to see that now, that even if you play well, it doesn't matter. Teams have got enough ammunition, enough grit, enough determination to come back into it. Defensively, I think Gary O'Neill is a huge person to take out of that midfield. He really did protect that three at the back for so many years. There's no doubt about it. When you play Byrne, Watts, and Healy in there, they're not as defensively minded, so they're not putting out as many fires as Gary O'Neill did. I don't know whether they're going to try and get Gary O'Neill back into that team when he comes back fit. But I tell you what, I think now, and it's like Lennon when he was out of Pats, you don't realise how important they are until they're not there. And I think Gary O'Neill not being fit enough, not being back in the base of that midfield, has been a big reason for the three at the back conceding so many goals, and the goalkeeper obviously as well. So to me, that would be the obvious one.
Pats beaten by Bulls, blew it 1-0 up, give up a couple of very late goals. Talking to people who were at the game and looking at the highlights, the decision on the hour to take Jason McClelland off and bring Luke Turner on, and inviting, it felt, Bulls onto them. people saying not a very Stephen Kenny substitution to make, but Vinny, the one criticism that you consistently had of Kenny, I think, during his reign as Ireland manager, was that he was making substitutions that he wouldn't have made when he was the Dundalk manager, in terms of he was overthinking things, he was waiting too long. Was that for you an obvious Kenny decision, or was that something that he's overthinking things again? Or was it that important, the substitution?
Ultimately was. I think you're inviting the pressure now. It's like anything, you're halfway to something or nothing. If they had held on, it was the right decision potentially. Obviously, he will know a squad. So to be fair to the manager, for first, we can all go on podcasts or late night debates and say this or that. We don't know, was there a couple of lads injured and he looked to his bench and they're the only ones that are available. So there's all reasons why you make a decision. I did say last week, and this is why I'm careful to choose my words, not criticism of anybody, but I was talking about substitution and the value of substitutions. Go back to Ali Coote real quickly. They're huge, and that decision-making process on your bench is absolutely crucial. And that's where it's not just the manager make that decision. Sometimes the manager lost in moments. They're winning every header. They're peeling for every free kick or whatever it might be, where there needs to be real clarity on the bench. What's the right decision? So one of the things, for example, me and Stephen used to do would be I'll give you the names of the Pats players because I'm sick of talking about Dundalk. So say I'd be saying to him this week, if Mason comes off, who do we put on? And why? Well, if we're winning 1-0, what do we do? So if McGlynn has to come off and we're 1-0 down, what's the change here? Or Zach comes off, do we and we're winning, do we go with Mulroney, who's been struggling a little bit, or do we go with something like a Keane Levy off that side? So you have them discussions midweek. I'm not saying they're not happening now with Stephen and his staff. I'm just saying that's the level of detail. But ultimately, it looks like on paper they made the wrong decision during the night, and then invited on the pressure, and Ball seized the moment. Remember, it is fine margins. You go back to the Stephen Bradley comment you made earlier on around, we ultimately lost up with Pats. Fine margin. They've done everything to go and win that game. Big Joe Redmond header. And then you look at Balls, everything they touch now is turning to goal, which is great for them. They deserve a little bit of luck. So, they're small margins. Who'd be a manager, hey?
And when you look at Pats this season, and we're talking about, say, the level that Rovers got away at Pats, the level that maybe Shells got to against Derry even on the opening night of the season, or in those first few games when they had a full squad. Drogheda, some of the performances they put in, Galway even again maybe against Pats early in the season, and last weekend, like a lot of the teams have shown a very high level. Have we seen Pats at their best yet?
No. And this is the big thing, and this is why when we had the conversation 2 weeks ago, it's ominous. When Pats hit the ground running, the pitches are better, they get everyone flying, it's going to be... Now, and I'm going to say this now, Pats are nowhere near the levels. If you look back over the last 4 matches, Bows, 2 shots on target, Drogs, 1 shot on target, Shamrock Rovers, 4 shots on target. That's not a flying Stephen Kenny statistic that you would see from one of his teams. It's just not the way. And the substitute the other day, from my time working under Stephen, he actually used his substitutions to send a message to the rest of the players on the pitch that we are going for this. If it's 0-0, it's 1-1. He would take off a right back. He would go 3 at the back. He would do something and make a change to think, whoa, everybody in the pitch would know now that we are going to step forward and we're going to try and take this 3 points. We're not going to let these 2 points disappear or pass us by. So I'm surprised at those. And that's what I'm saying to you. If Pats get going and Mulroney and Elbazetti, Tina's back in, Mealy is playing well, Brandon Kavanagh shows the kind of form that he showed at the end of last season, they're going to kick on. They're sitting 1 point off top. It's so tight, but if they get going, it's going to be very interesting.
Schauberg is a big one, Nathan. Sorry. Just to touch on the player real quickly. Schauberg, centre half, not Schauberg, he's the fullback, Tom Grogowski.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a big loss for that team. And I know a lot of Pats fans...
But he's not a loss. He's dropped them.
Yeah, no, but he's a loss out of the team. I know a lot of Pats fans would feel that. Now, John Hoare's a standing footballer. He's come into it. Joe Redmond had that big moment. He's the club captain. But I think he's a big loss to that team in terms of, the organisation around silly goals they're giving up. And I think he is a loss. Both fullbacks probably aren't at the level that probably Stephen would want. You would say I'm a bit surprised by the Kazim hasn't really worked out since he's brought him in. Hasn't really played him a lot. Surprised.
Go back to the Gravosty decision, because funny, and maybe there's almost an Irish bias that when you would watch Pats, you go, well, Joe Redmond is the pick of the two centre halves, and it speak to a lot of people who'd watch Pats and would really know the game would say, no, Gravosty is the one that holds the whole thing together. But it's Gravosty who's the one that's been dropped for Sean Hoare, a player that Kenny obviously knows inside out. Why is it that he's looked at, what is it that Hoare brings that Gravosty doesn't have?
Pace, simple. Well, and head in both boxes. So more so an attacking point of view. Sean has, oh geez, I hate saying it, but it's the only word coming to my mind. I used too many big words last week in the pod around world-class save, but almost Ronaldo-esque leap. So he can get up. No one really would notice unless you work with him. He can get up and almost stay there for a couple of seconds and just score more goals with the ability he has from corners. So probably, I don't know whether he's lost. I'd love to see his stats at the moment, but I've said this 100 times in the pod, when he, like him and Sean Gannon, were thereabouts as the two quickest players at Dundalk in terms of the statistics with the GPS units. So pace and I would say his head and ability are the two reasons why Steve probably has erred that way. Well, I think it's a bit of a loss. I'm not saying he should drop Sean and go the other way. I just think it's a loss out of the team.
We were chatting last week with Richie Towell, and I know you'd done a bet once upon a time with Richie that backfired on you spectacularly about the amount of goals that he would score. I think you have rose-tinted glasses when you look back in your time with Sean Hoare, because every time you talk about him, you're like, Sean Hoare will get you, probably get you 9-10 goals a season. The most goals Sean Hoare's ever gotten a season is 4 in all competitions.
Yeah, that's because I never played him. No, but what I said to you is he should score more goals, and defensively he is exceptional. He gets up there, wins a lot of headers. Sean should score more goals. If you compare him and say Brian Gartland, who scored a huge amount of headed goals for Dundalk over the years, Sean would have a better leap than Brian. Brian would just have a bit better movement in the box. So anyway,
it feels like the problem going into the game tomorrow night, if you were, if you're on commentary and you're trying to plan your starting 11, is I have no real idea what that front five is going to be for Pats tomorrow evening, and I have no idea which.
Sorry, I'm hogging Gareth's time. Let me just say that's the Stephen Kenny way. The front five will change quite often. So you've seen that with their team. You can see that with Brandon Kavanagh, for argument's sake, in terms of he's been exceptional for Kenny, and then he'll come out of team because he'll find someone else to do that role from. You know that way. Keane Levy came in last week because Keane has been brilliant off the bench, and he keeps them in, to keep them keen. That's the way he does it.
100%, Vinnie. And listen, I was there. I was a winger with Stephen, and you never knew. You always knew on a Wednesday when it was 11v11, and you knew you were in the dummies group. But you never knew who was going to play from week to week, even though you were playing well, goals, assists, it didn't matter. And Power's injury is massive. See, when he got injured, the other two wingers, Elbazetti and Mulroney, just you could probably see it in training, a sigh of relief. They knew then that they were going to play. Now there's a few other people that could come in there, Carty as well, and Brandon Kavanagh can play out wide, or McClelland. But that extra running power is exactly what the reason he signed Power. So not having the internal competition has been massive.
And it feels like we're talking a lot of negative around some of these teams, Nathan, in terms of why they're not playing well and getting away from the others. Obviously, some of that's down to competitiveness. But you think about Gary Neville's rant a few weeks ago. I was doing a little bit of homework earlier on, right, for something different. And if I told you one team has made 4,526 passes, okay, and another team has completed 2,742 passes, which two teams are you talking about?
Well, you're talking about Go United with the 2,700, we're going to say, and Sligo Rovers with the 4,700.
No. So we're talking. Well, you're very, very close. If you'd been tuned in, you would have got it. But Drogheda United, okay, 274. 2,742. And Sligo have made 4,526. Sligo are easy on the eye. They're nice. A lot of teams are nice now. Easy, look well, pass. So I obviously a little bit older than Gareth, but when I got the ball in midfield off a right back, my first thought was, can I pass it to a left back out the other side? And I didn't pass to his feet. If there was no one within 10 yards of him, I rolled him 4 or 5 yards in front of him to make him come onto the ball. But the game has slowed down a little bit now. So you compare that to, maybe this is a segue for you for Drogheda United, Nathan, but trying to do your job here. But Drogheda are using their very best players and getting the very best out of them. Other teams are coaching some of the teams to death. And that, you've got to speed up the game. In my view, you look at the intensity Shells played at last year. They haven't been able to get back to that intensity this year. There's a bit of a lack of intensity in the league. There's a little bit too much of sideways, backways passing. And that stat for me was off the charts.
Well, Vinnie, if you look at the two most intense teams, it's Drogheda and Galway, and they're sitting top of the league. And
but that doesn't mean, sorry, Gareth, that doesn't mean you go old school like that. Keep the ball long, and you didn't. That's not criticism, but that is true.
But if you inject the intensity into some of the other teams who have supposedly technical players and can pass the ball, and put that onus on them and those demands on them, then naturally you should gravitate to wins and towards the top of the league.
It's almost a problem in the league that could do it with being fixed. But managers, people would say, "Oh, I'm not a good coach." Okay, so that's grand.
But Vinnie, are you saying that the demands of intensity has not been put on the players by the manager?
I think players even want it. So, and I don't know whether this graphically plays across the air. Sorry, Nathan, but if a centre half gives you the ball now, it's almost like the midfielder's job to pass it to the other centre half, as opposed to the forward passes. The best example I can give you is roll it in front of a right back, 5 yards in front of him. So that word front foot football is such a lazy comment. What does it mean? But to be fair, it means loads of things. Front foot, get after teams. And people want to know, where's the challenge with Kenny's team? I would say to you, Breslin can do it. Schoberg a little bit on the other side. I'd say he'd love flying wingers going past, or flying fullbacks going past his wingers. Not necessarily to give them the ball all the time, but to create a little bit of space and get the ball into wide areas and at fullbacks a little bit quicker. Rovers play a little bit differently. We sort of discussed that. But I think if somebody gets a hold of the team at the moment now and lifts the intensity up, then, and we talk about the top three for argument's sake that are still favourites. If one of them, because be under no illusions, Rovers' intensity against Pats in one of the best performances I've seen in 2 years was about intensity. It was running power. Burke, Bourne, Gaffney. Are them lads able to do that over season? Hopefully so. But that's the big difference for me. There's a lack of intensity in a lot of teams. And if you're going to do that, you're going to play the Man City way and be bloody good at it. Because if you're not, you'll go 3 or 4 games, you lose. And we look good, but we lost. And that's the challenge some teams are having.
And I have to say, I was impressed with Galway recently. I watched them a couple of times. See, whenever, especially in Derry when they went down to 10 men, their intensity remained high, but their ability to get the ball in the good areas, not 5, 6, 7 passes. I'm talking about 2 passes into the areas that then they could put more measured balls into the box, not just lumping it forward at the first option, but actually getting into the zones that they wanted to get into, and then putting the ball up to Hickey, up to Dyer, and up to Walsh. I was massively impressed with them. They were unbelievably efficient.
Well, Dyer, listen, everyone's talking about Dyer, and you almost end up ignoring the chat about him. But what he has brought, he's just the perfect player for Galway United. And we see the quality of the goal. Like, he's going to have his own little goal of the season competition by the end of all of this, Gareth. But actually, the bit of fighting, the bit of the dog in him, like, that you need to lead the line for Galway United is the thing that stood out more than anything. Yeah, you can have all the finishes, and you need that, and you need that striker's instinct. But you ain't going to get away with that stuff unless you're doing the dirty work for Caulfield and Horgan.
We're talking about intensity. That's what he brings. I would say Coughlin and Horgan, when they seen him in the first week in training, I would say they were blown away by his intensity, his fitness, his athleticism, and he's just constant. And it's infectious as well. Nathan, see if you're sitting in midfield and you're trying to kind of slide over and back and you're not closing down. You see this boy in front of you and he's like a bumblebee the whole game, he's basically occupying 3 centre halves at times. And then when that ball drops, whether it's a Hickey knockdown, whether it's a long throw into the box, like up in the Brandywell, where he just toe poked the ball into the net, he's unbelievable. And then he goes then and shows us his real quality when he can score goals from anywhere. His volley up in Dalymount, he's got it all. He's got everything.
It is a double header again, I should mention. There's a full round of games on Monday and we'll be in Tala. Where else, Gareth? Where else on Monday night? Live on News Talk, 7 o'clock kickoff for Shamrock Rovers against Sligo Rovers.
I can just see the pitch from the back of the garden there, Nathan. Yeah.
That's good.
All right.
Gareth won't be travelling anywhere though, so a couple of home games for Derry City.
100%, Friday, Monday. Big ones as well.
Shells, Pats.
And by the way, the new North Stand is open as well. An extra 2,800 people into the Brandywell. So I cannot wait to see it full. And again, what games? I mean, Shelburne coming to the Brandywell. The last time they were there, they won the league. It's going to be incredible.
So I said they are form-wise second on that form list. Though they were beaten by Waterford last time out, so I'm not sure what all that means. Are you seeing over recent weeks signs of Tiernan Lynch getting his philosophy across? What's the general vibe?
I think that the players are getting up to speed. I think there's a few players that just do, and again, we talk about the League of Ireland, how different it is, and when people come from further afield or across the water, it takes them time. But the players are now starting to understand the intensity. We were all there that first game. I mean, Derry just were blown away by Shelburne's intensity. It was crazy. So this will give them an idea now, a line in the sand saying, how far have we come from that match? But the likes of Dom Thomas, White, even the centre half, Big Holt, Winchester in the middle of the park, they're now getting to grips with the league. And to be honest, and Vinnie, I'll tell you this as well, I've experienced it as a player. See, when players come over from England, they think they're going to put their feet up and they're just going to cruise this league, and they think that they're too good for this league. And that generally challenges their mentality, and that's why most of them just fall away and don't even play in the league or go and play junior football. You've got to accept it for what it is, and you've got to get up to speed and be willing to put the work in and do the work.
You like Winchester?
Big time. Very good. I mean, this guy's captain. He's played 500 times for Shrewsbury. He's captain Shrewsbury. He is a very, 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 very good player who is suited to League of Ireland. He's tall, he's wiry, he's lanky. He loves a tackle. I told you about the story up in Richmond and St. Pat's. St. Pat's took a centre, took the start of the match, put it back to Forrester. Forrester went out to left back. Winchester left the bottom of the midfield, went straight up to Forrester and elbowed him right in the chest. Now, little did he know that Forrester's used to this and has been used to this. It wasn't going to derail him from the game, but that's him just laying the marker down, going, I'm here in this league. I know how difficult it is, and I'm going to lay down a few markers.
Did he not get sent off and cost Derry the game?
That was later on, though. He didn't get yellow carded for the elbow.
Right, so tomorrow night, as I say, we've got Bowls against Waterford. The Bowls turn around, 6 wins, 6 defeats. Suddenly, life is very good for Alan Reynolds, Stephen O'Donnell. All of the question marks are certainly pushed to the side. Was this just something clicked and they found a bit of momentum and they're riding the crest of the wave, or are you seeing something tactically that they've changed over the last few weeks, Vinnie?
I think the team has been a little bit more settled. I think the 2 young centre-halves have done really well. Settled with his goalkeeper. You're starting to see, I mean, albeit there was a lot of criticism of the management, there was also a fair amount of criticism of the players, but I think some of them have stepped up to the plate, whether it's Tierney, whether it's the Dawson Devoy, etc. Still feels like Bowles could do with a centre-forward, a real out-and-out League of Ireland centre-forward to get them goals. But Bowles are in that category for me with probably 5-6 other teams that could lose 3 or 4 games in a row and then win 3 or 4 games. And if the league remains this tight, well, that's fine. But A lot of, like we spoke about fine margins earlier on about other clubs. A lot of the fine margins went against them earlier on the season, but now they've turned their way, and I think the confidence will be really sky high in the club, particularly the manner in which they won those couple of games. So I think things are looking up. I think he has to accept it, but Reynolds probably has a little bit more work to do to win those fans back over. But I think he'd accept that. They haven't won enough games in Dalymount Park, but I think that's starting to turn for them. And anyone, I think most of us wish people like him, Stevie, the staff he has there well. Bowls are a good club, and I think it's good to see them picking up wins, particularly in Dalymount.
I think, Nathan, that I always look at the players. I mean, obviously they're going through a tough time and have been for a while. But I always look at the reaction and the late goals and what the players, how they celebrate and where they go. I mean, you saw the players running to Stevie, running to Alan, and running to the crowd. I mean, it's obvious that the players are 100% behind them. And as fans, you've got to support the players and the manager for when he's there. You know, you can't just kind of turn on them every now and again. I mean, I thought it was good anyway. If I was a Bows fan, I was sitting looking at it, I was going, they're together here and they want the best for Bows.
Special mention though to Kavanagh and Graham, like two young lads have been exceptional for them. Yeah, obviously they will make the odd mistake. You look at Noonan's goal, particularly for Rovers, where that's just learning. They learn from that. They do a video analysis session, and they be told to go and press the ball. That's you've got to engage it. The second centre half should probably speak to the first centre half who backed off and say, there's no one behind you, go and press it, and he narrows up. Give a little bit of balance to the back four. That's what should have happened. If you imagine Cornwall in that back four, he would have let that little roar to Kavanagh, for example, says, go and press the ball. He steps out 5 yards. Noonan all of a sudden isn't inside the box. And, but hey, that's what young players have to learn. And that's where there needs to be, with certain players, a little bit of grace from the fans. But I sort of slightly different view in Gareth in terms of, I think both fans are, it's okay to be a little bit critical because they haven't won enough games at home. You come to Dalymount Park and they're not winning. So they deserve some wins, but I think that's about the turn for them, to be fair to the staff.
None of them ran into the loving arms of the TV pundits on the side of the pitch, so I'm surprised Gareth was impressed by running to the management.
There's only a few TV pundits that deserve that sort of treatment.
What's the inside track on Rory Higgins?
He must have been talking to you, Vinnie, was he?
I know there's a job up available. Is there close to home from him, Gareth?
There's a few jobs. Yeah, no, listen, I think he's ready. He's well rested now. He's ready to get back into the game. I don't think it'll be too long before he's on the sidelines again. He's looking forward to it.
Where?
Well, I think it's been obvious that he's been interviewing in Ireland and in England, a couple of places, but I think the Coleraine position
is available.
Dotting the I's and crossing the T's. But there's a little bit to be done, but I'm sure it won't be too long.
All right, we shall leave it there for this week. So tomorrow night we have bottom against top, Sligo Rovers against Drogheda United. Gareth is going to be at the Ryan McBride Brandywell Stadium for the meeting of Derry City and Shelburne. We've got Cork City against Shamrock Rovers down at Turner's Cross, Bohemians against Waterford at Dalymount, and our live game on OTB Sports Radio. So download the Off the Ball app and you'll be able to hear Jonathan Higgins and Barry Murphy talking you through Pats against Galway United, 7:45 kickoff. Then we're going to have League of Ireland late night with Shane and Johnny and Cameron on Twitter Spaces from 10. We'll have all the reaction to the games on our social channels as well. And then on Monday night, a Bank Holiday Monday special live on News Talk from 7 o'clock. Full live commentary of Shamrock Rovers against Sligo Rovers. I'll need to be very careful when I say Rovers to not get the full ire of the Sligo fans by calling them in full both teams' official titles. Drogheda against Cork, Galway against Bows, Shells against Waterford and Derry against Pats are the other games, and we'll have updates on all of those games throughout the evening as well. But Gareth, thank you as ever.
Thank you, Nathan.
Vinnie,
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thanking you, man.
We shall talk to you on Monday night at Tallaght Stadium. League of Ireland Football and Off the Ball is brought to you by Rockshore, a league of our own. Drink responsibly. See drinkaware.ie, and the League of Ireland podcast back next Thursday.